The Utah Utes and Iowa State Cyclones open up big play in Ames coming up in 2026. But which team has the edge in this matchup? We're breaking it down on this Locked On Utes, Locked On Cyclones crossover.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes and Locked On Cyclones your first listen and view of the day. I'm J2 Wistersill, host of Locked On Utes. You probably already guessed it. That's Nick Marovets, host of Locked On Cyclones. On today's show, we're just talking about our two teams, both with first-time head coaches at these institutions. Nick's coach a little more experienced at head coaching other places. My coach a little more familiar with how to run things at a Utah. We'll talk about who has the edge there and just talk about this matchup a little bit more. Nick, I find Iowa State to be fascinating. You'll see rankings that have them at the bottom of the Big 12, but there are some pieces on here. And look, Matt Campbell's gone, but I like the coach you guys brought in, and this is still a program that's been winning as of late. So I am just curious to see where they kind of end up falling come Big 12 time. And this will be their first test against a Utah squad that lost a lot with Kyle leaving to the NFL, but still some key pieces returning. I'm just really curious, where is Iowa State as a program right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, right now they definitely have momentum coming off of Matt Campbell. So I'll be curious to see what kind of momentum carries into this new tenure. And obviously, Jimmy Rogers, the new head coach, everything he did at Washington State. Yes, it was only 1 year, but a lot of close losses and earning bowl eligibility. I thought there was actually a lot of promising signs there. And then, of course, what he did at South Dakota State. I think that there's a lot of potential with him as a head coach. And then I really like the staff that he's put together. So I'll be curious to see if they can carry that momentum. I've been very, very vocal about they have to. This is the year for Iowa State. There is no buffer year or 2 years just because of where we're at with NIL and that whole situation. Obviously, just the other day, it was announced that Jack Trice and Hilton will now start selling alcohol. That's a huge deal because Iowa State's been very against that. And Jamie Pollard now kind of seeing where they're at financially. So small tangent there to really emphasize my point that Iowa State needs to be successful this year, and I think they've brought in the right group to do it. You bring up this is a fun squad. Like, it's interesting. I am just as intrigued as you are. I do not know for sure what's going to happen, but I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And you bring in more than 50 Cyclones have entered the transfer portal. So it's a lot of new coming in there. You had over 16 starters last year. I think from a Utah standpoint, even though this is on the road, I feel good about Utah's chances right now because, Nick, sometimes these transfer portal things come together. They work. It's magic. It's awesome right away. It's tough, though, early in the season. And for the most part, I feel like seeing this many new pieces come together, facing a team that, in Utah, to me, look, you're going to see a lot of preseason rankings that have this team in the top 25. I think that's fair. I'd have Utah third in the Big 12 right now. I think anywhere from 3 to even 6 somewhere, maybe a 7 spot, because you see what an Arizona, Houston can bring on as well, too. I think that's that kind of second tier of teams outside of a Tech and a BYU. But how confident are you that this can gel quickly? I mean, you guys got quite the test week 2 going to Iowa coming up as well. So you guys will learn soon what this team is going to be like, at least in the month of September.
Yeah, well, they'll be playing at Kinnick at night. That is going to be a very challenging game. Obviously, the Cyhawk is always a fun one to watch, but that one's going to be a real test of Jimmy Rogers and then, of course, Jalen Rayner. You bring up kind of like the gelling of this big transfer portal class. And yes, they're coming from all over the place, but a lot of guys are following Jimmy Rogers from Washington State. So there is a level of familiarity that we're gaining from those kinds of players. During spring ball, there was a big conversation about the Washington State guys actually staying after with transfers or Iowa State guys from years prior, teaching them the system, teaching them the cues, where are they lining up, what are they looking for, those kinds of things. So you're kind of getting some coaching built in with the players. There's a lot to really be optimistic about in that sense, but of course you always are going to wonder, right? Who's going to step up in the wide receiver room? Is the quarterback and Jalen Rayner going to connect with those wide receivers, because he's not the Washington State guy. He's coming from Arkansas State and is a Sun Belt Conference quarterback going to make the jump to the Power 4 that Iowa State needs. So a lot of question marks, obviously, with it being a transfer portal heavy team. Ridiculously heavy. I believe Oklahoma State maybe has us by a guy, but really other than that, we're 1 and 2. So very, very heavy in the transfer portal. But I think there is a little bit of hope just considering how many guys followed from SDSU to Washington State and then from Washington State to Iowa State.
I think it's interesting anytime you talk about a new team, there's going to be a lot of eyes that are, I guess, with every team is going to go to the quarterback. For Utah, I
Yep.
feel very good about Devin Dampier. I think if you were to say, like, what's the reason, despite Utah's losses, the Utes are still in the top 25, I'd say it's Dampier, Big 12 newcomer of the year, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country. He definitely needs to hone in on his accuracy a little more, but hey, he made a ton of amazing plays and was battling most of last season with an injury. So I have confidence in Devin Dampier's ability to go on the road and get Big 12 wins based on what he showed. How confident are you that Rayner is going to be effective at the P4 level? And it is, I mean, seeing an Iowa and a Utah defense first few weeks of the season, Nick, that's tough sledding for any new quarterback making the jump up to the P4.
Absolutely. The thing I really like about Jalen Rayner is his legs. We haven't really gotten a ton of that in the past. Obviously, Rocco had some running elements to his game, but we also saw what happened against Cincinnati, and really after that game, there wasn't a lot of running from Rocco. Jalen Rayner, I think, is a lot closer to, if any Utah fans are Iowa State history buffs, Seneca Wallace. Way back, not super recent, but he's kind of got that style a little bit to him. And I do think that Iowa State is going to be very run heavy this season. And with essentially Jalen Rayner's legs, they'll be able to field 11 guys on offense, as opposed to, sometimes you talk about you got 10 guys on offense because the quarterback's not really in every play. I think that Jalen Rayner is going to be used heavily in that regard. And so even if he's not the most accurate, even if his sense in the pocket isn't perfect, you can just rely on his legs, speed option, quarterback power, whatever it is. I think you got a lot of options there. And so it was a really solid pickup considering where the program's at.
It's going to be interesting to see in this matchup against Utah, because you mentioned his legs. Well, Utah's weakness overall, I'd probably say, like you say, what's the thing that concerns you most coming into the season? You could say it's 5 new stars up front for Utah. It's more so the run defense. I mean, you look at the Kansas State and the Kansas game down the stretch last year, it was bad. So it's an entirely new defensive line. None of those guys are really proven good players at the P4 level, I'd say, yet. I like some of the freshmen, what they showed last year for Utah, but they got to make the sophomore leap. Linebackers got to be more consistent tackling, and even the defensive ends have to prove they can set the edge consistently. Look, Utah's defense looked decent against Nebraska in the bowl game, but that Cornhuskers team was absolutely abysmal. So that'll be the question for Utah, is how do they stop the run? And I'm curious to see how this Iowa State team will run the ball, Nick, because it's a very new offensive line for you guys, right? How confident are you that this group can come together quickly?
Yeah, the offensive line is always going to be a question mark, especially when you don't have a lot of returners. And the big thing that I talk about with the offensive line is it's not always the 5 best guys. It's the 5 guys who play the best together. It's kind of the order of the words in that sentence that matters a lot. And so can Tyler Roll and Jimmy Rogers find the really perfect set of 5 before the season starts, and who gets in at tight end, and what exactly are their responsibilities? Obviously, I don't know if you guys heard this over in Salt Lake City, the big tiff around the Jalen Jackson running back, and then we bring in Arnold Barnes from Tulane. So the running back situation is really interesting for Iowa State. I do think like Cam Petaway and Naden Flora are going to step up big time, but it does come down to that offensive line. Can they protect, of course, Jalen Rayner, and then create the holes for the running backs to run through? I think Iowa State's going to be big in the run game. I think that's a focus, but I don't know if that doesn't mean they're going to be good,
Yeah.
That just means that's where they want to be good. And I think if you focus there, you can see a lot of paid off dividends in the long run, but that it doesn't guarantee you anything. So I'm very much curious about this offensive line. Like you said, big transfer portal class.
Yeah, and being good in September versus maybe October, November, when this group gets more games under their belt together, is going to be interesting to see. And I actually think it's an advantage for you guys. Look, it's going to be tough to win and beat Iowa, but it's okay that you see them early, because it gets you more ready for the Utah game, I'd say, rather than, I think it's Indiana loves to schedule the cupcakes early on. Obviously, they win a ton, but when you schedule cupcakes, you don't set yourself up for, hey, what's this going to be like? Utah sees Arkansas early in Salt Lake City. So that's the type of game, hey, let's test ourselves against a P4 opponent before we get set for Big 12 conference action. We're just getting started breaking down these two teams, and we got a lot more coming up in one moment. This crossover episode of Locked On Utes and Locked On Cyclones is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports just like it is in business. When you think about both of these teams, these programs, Iowa State and Utah, both under new coaching changes. What do these coaching staffs have to do? They have to be aligned on every single move. The game plans, the adjustment, all have to be in one. And both these squads are trying to move towards a goal of eventually winning Big 12 championships. And the only way you can do that is if your business is on the same page. And if you want your business to run like a high operation college football program, that's where you need Odoo. Because great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon with Odoo. Thank you guys again for making Locked On Utes and Locked On Cyclones your first listen view of the day. Want to remind all of you listening, Locked On Utes and Locked On Cyclones every day. Our clubs are live and available. Head over to lockedonutes.supercast.com. Head over to lockedoncyclones.supercast.com to get into Discord chat with us, as well as you get an ad-free audio version of this podcast. Click your episode description, whether you're listening on podcast platforms or YouTube, to learn more about our everydayer clubs. Nick, where do you have the most confidence in Iowa State right now? I know you got like a receiver, Dominic Overby, who's actually from Utah, coming back as well on the defensive side of the ball. There's some new pieces there, but Iowa State under Campbell had some strong defenses. Where are you most confident right now in Iowa State for the 26th season?
That's a good question. My answer so far has been, it's very broad brush. I've been saying the defense.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that isn't really because of any particular player or honestly even really any position group. Jesse Bobbitt is the new defensive coordinator for Iowa State. And we talked a little bit before the show about like how this Iowa State team feels different. The media is different. I don't know if it's the Jimmy Rogers releases or if it's the Iowa State media team. Who I don't know who decides this, but somebody put out a mic'd up, spring practice of Jesse Bobbitt. And I'm pretty sure he still thinks he's playing. I mean, the energy that these guys bring to the field is incredible. And so I'm obviously very curious to find out who excels this season, which positions step up, because it is so new. I don't have a really, really solid answer for you. I have some expectations. I have some hopes. But I just know that this coaching staff is incredible. And Jesse Bobbitt, I'm pretty sure Jesse Bobbitt could take Bishop Sycamore out there and still be competitive. So I love what we're seeing on the defensive side of the ball, especially from a coaching perspective. This Utah team, all right, I waited until segment 2 to really get into this. I heard all the comments last year, all right? I was a little loud. I was a little off, okay? I had to eat a little bit, and I take it, and that's just a part of the game. Is this Utah team going to be better than last year? Are they going to be what I said they were going to be last year? What can we expect from this Utah team? And then just to bounce the question right back to you, which positions stand out? Is it Dampier that's kind of the number one guy, or is there somebody else that could step up?
I think it's interesting because right now on paper, I don't think Utah is better than they were last year, but in many ways, I feel like their schedule is easier and more manageable. And because even though they've taken a step back, I don't think it's a major step back. I think it's a step back with some of the key returners or certain spots. I think they have a great chance to win 10 games again. Utah does not have a game on their schedule where I go, yeah, you're not winning that one. And I know all fans could say that, but I mean, in a way, you could argue their toughest game is at Arizona. Look, BYU comes to us. Houston comes to us. Nick, a couple of years ago, we were on our third string quarterback, and there was a controversial penalty late in that game that helped the Cougars win the game. I'm not saying whether it's the right or wrong call. I'm just saying it's a fact. These rivalry games like Utah, BYU, I'm never going to look at that game and be like, well, we don't got a shot. We were in that last year too. And BYU's a really good team, but it's really hard to win in Rice-Eccles Stadium unless you're Iowa State in 24. You mentioned you had to eat crow last year. I was right there with you 2 years before that, my friend. So that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But looking at this year's team, man, I just really feel like they got some strong things going for them. I think you mentioned the press clippings with your defensive coordinator. Morgan Scalley has done nothing but win the offseason. When you look at his comments that he's made and the way he's galvanized, he's an elite defensive coordinator. When you have someone like that in-house, you don't let him out of your building. You don't look outside for someone new to establish culture. You give a guy like Morgan a chance. And I think there's a lot of excitement around him coming on. We lost a lot on the offensive side of the ball, staff-wise and player-wise, but the wide receiver room actually has looked as bright as it has in quite some time. I'd say Dampier is the strength of the team overall, and the running back, Wayshawn Parker, barely missed 1,000 yards last year, should easily exceed that mark this year too. Secondary looks like it's going to be good again. I think one of the best safety rooms in the Big 12, I'd say too. to, but they got to see, hey, how consistently can we move people up front? I like the guys in that room, but they haven't done it at the P4 level together. Defensive tackle room, how can we stop the run better? I don't expect them to be a bottom 3 unit. I don't expect them to have a top 5 run defense with the guys that are listed there right now too. So be an interesting year for Utah, Nick, but they missed Tech. They missed like a Kansas State and a Baylor. How good are those teams going to be? I don't know. But there's just a lot of other teams in this conference that I look at like, hey, a tough road game here, tough road game there. I think the schedule breaks well for Utah, and I think they got a shot to have a really good season. And I expect that to start in Ames as we stand here today. I would predict Utah to win this game as of right now. Would you predict the Cyclones to beat the Utes, though, with the questions both teams have?
Actually, up until this point, I was going into this crossover pretty open-minded because up until this point, I've been picking Iowa State, but I don't really know a whole lot about Utah. I was just going to point out the fact that I feel like this last offseason, a lot of the conversation around coaches has been around Mike Gundy. And, of course, the Matt Campbell one was huge. That one, I feel like, broke the media a little bit. But don't even forget about, like, Chris Kleiman down at Kansas State. I don't feel like enough people are talking about what Utah's going through. I mean, Whittingham was, I would say, one of the staples. I mean, yes, Utah's new to the Big 12, but for a coach in a program from that perspective, is that concerning to you that you're – I mean, you're kind of in the same spot that Iowa State is. Of course, you didn't have the roster turnover, but from kind of legendary head coach to newer coach, obviously, it's not the exact same. But are you concerned from that perspective? We can get to the game preview in a second. I just wanted to get your kind of reading on the coaching situation because we're a little closer in coaching similarities than maybe some are looking at it.
I think so. Yeah, I think as I mentioned, I'm just really, and this is where it's trying to be the balance. Like Morgan to me was the only guy. Like he had to be the guy to replace Kyle. It's been in place. He knows what it takes to win the culture. I feel good about him, but that does not make anything different from what you're talking about, Nick. Like it's hard to be the guy. Some people are. I know he gets a lot of flack. Ryan Day at Ohio State, right? Still won national championship there, replacing Urban Meyer. I don't think Morgan's going to win national championships at Utah. I just think he's going to keep Utah in a very similar spot. But also, there's questions about financially, which we can both relate to. How are both of these universities doing? I mean, Morgan Scalley, we just signed the private equity deal. Utah did the separate one with Otro Capital, not the one the Big 12's doing. We did our own separate deal, first of its kind. Morgan Scalley had to give $2 million of his own money to kind of help try to fund this Utah football team. So there's questions, hey, how is this position this team is going to be in long term? But I just trust Morgan. I really do. I think he's earned this opportunity. He's been one of the best defensive coordinators for a long time. He's turned down several opportunities to go. So I'm feeling good about him taking over. But as we said, there's no question. It's different being the guy. Just like for your guy, Nick, I mean, it's different winning at the P4 level. We've seen a lot of coaches step up. Billy Napier, right, when he got the Florida job, it did not work at all. We see a lot of coaches who succeed at the G5 level. They get a P4 opportunity, and they just can't figure it out. So it'll be fascinating to see how both of these guys handle it, Nick.
Yeah, it's a huge jump, and I think the NIL right now is probably one of the biggest. I mean, I know it's basketball, and I know it's not related to either of us, but Dusty May leaving, it sounds like very much heavily related to the recruiting and the NIL and all that, and I think that's only just kind of a point towards how challenging it is at the Power 4 level. You're not just competing with Texas State and UTSA. I mean, nothing against those schools. It's just a little bit different when you're competing nationwide and so-and-so's got a private equity deal and they're offering $50 million and like $50 million. Yeah, I think I'm going to take that. I don't really care what you guys have for facilities. Like they can have me practicing in a barn for $50 million. So yeah, it's a very challenging jump to the Power 4. I trust Jimmy Rogers. And it does sound like Utah has it figured out a little bit. I will say on Iowa State's side, we went from Matt Campbell to no head coach to Jimmy Rogers in the course of about an hour. So it sounds like Iowa State had it figured out too. So I'll be very interested to see those two clash on what looks like September 26th, first game of the Big 12 conference play.
It's incredibly exciting. I think the Utes are going to get a win as we stand here right now. But how does Nick feel about it? And what should we make of the future of the Big 12 with so much uncertainty? Media days not far off as well either. We're breaking it down in one moment. Before we even get to Utah, Iowa State, Nick, real quick, where should this Iowa State team finish in this conference? I mean, as we said, some people predict them to be in the bottom. Some, I think, would have them. I don't know if I've seen many have them in the top 10 yet, just because of how much you lost, you turned over. And look, Matt Campbell, it's tough to lose a guy like that. It's tough to lose a guy like Whittingham, we said. It's just Utah was able to keep so much of it in place because of Morgan Scalley staying with the defensive staff, saying, I think that's why Utah, with Dampier returning, is getting more benefit of the doubt, just like you guys would if Rocco probably stayed, right? There'd be more benefit of the doubt given there. Where do you think is a fair place to have Iowa State entering Big 12 play?
I think, to finish Big 12 play, like where they're going to end up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, my bad. I meant to finish. My bad. I said entering,
yeah.
I should said entering this season
flows
more
yes.
organically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
No, you're right.
I think end of the season, I've gone back and forth. I could see this team being a bowl eligible team, and they'll probably pick up 2 wins in the non-con, of course. So that would mean like a 4-win conference schedule, which would put them at what, like 9-8 in the Big 12, right around that halfway mark. I think that's a very doable season. Their schedule is sort of tough. It's actually nothing compared to Utah's. I was just looking through your guys' schedule, and your guys is a little bit of a cakewalk. So
I agree.
I'm going to say Iowa State's about halfway up the standings as of right now. But do you think Utah can perform better than third in the conference is still really good last season. You got stuck behind a Texas Tech and a BYU team that were just rolling. I think both of those teams should have been in the 12-team playoff. With this schedule, is there any reason why Utah isn't competing for a Big 12 title?
Outside of injuries, I'd say there shouldn't be. Look, I think Houston and Utah are on very equal footing. So to me, Houston comes into your building, you should win that game. To me, you've lost to your rival 3 years in a row. And I know we're replacing more, and I would have BYU ahead of Utah. But when it's in Rice-Eccles Stadium, you got to find a way to win it. And I do think they have a great chance to do so. As we said, at Arizona is their toughest game. But, Nick, I think Arizona is the type of team where just because of the state of the conference, I would have Arizona in the top 5. I actually think Fita might be the best quarterback of the Big 12. But, my gosh, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they disappointed just like they did 2 years ago. That's what we love about the Big 12. And with what's happened at Tech and BYU's questions at the pass-catching department, too, every team in this conference has a major question mark, I feel like. So that's where it also makes it more fun and open. But yeah, Utah, we miss the Oklahoma State, who that could be another fun swing team. What are they going to look like, right? Yeah, Baylor. What if Lagway finally clicks? And I'm not saying Heisman contender, but what if he's finally solid? We don't have to worry about that. We don't see them too. So there's a lot of reason to believe that this Utah team can go and make a big run in the Big 12 because of the schedule that they play. Getting Arkansas to come to us even. This schedule could set a lot of teams up to go undefeated. I think with what Utah lost, they will not go undefeated. But if Tech had this schedule, we'd be talking about them going undefeated for sure. Utah, I think we look at it and say, hey, you could win 10 games and not be as good of a team. Next year's schedule, Nick, we go to Tech. We see Miami on a neutral site in Vegas. We go to BYU. But this year, it sets up favorably for the Utes. And I do think it starts with a win in Ames. Just as we look at these two teams, there's a little more continuity on the Utah side, even though we do have a new offensive coordinator coming over there. What's your confidence level at the Cyclones? This would be a huge win. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to get the win at Iowa. I think that might be even tougher. But if you could win at home against this Utah team, to me, a team that was just a top 3 team in the conference, might be one of the signature wins that Coach Rogers gets on the season.
Yeah, I'm not counting Iowa State out of this game at all. I'm really not. I think Iowa State does have a challenging schedule across the board. And to be honest, this is one of those games that I just didn't really circle. They're going to be at BYU. They'll play Oklahoma State, yes, at home. But I think that team's going to be really good. They'll be at Arizona. I don't think this Utah team is in that same category for me. I think they're going to be good, but you're coming off of your 2 non-conference home games in SEMO and Bowling Green, and then of course the Cyhawk game. Kind of the same thing you were talking about with like BYU, Utah, what's going on there. It's, BYU's way better than Utah, but it ends up being a super close game. Like that's how those rivalry games go. And so Iowa, probably a better team than Iowa State, probably going to be a huge deal that it's at night. But Iowa State's going to step up to the plate. I think that's going to be a huge confidence booster. Then you get the win over Bowling Green, in theory. Like you can never guarantee anything. But then that Utah game, starting off Big 12 play, Iowa State introducing alcohol sales this year. I think I do think that's going to be a big deal.
No, it is. It's just funny that you mentioned it there. But you're right. It is something NIL-wise. And it will get the crowd rowdy. We know that.
The crowd rowdy. And the other side of that, too, everyone wants to talk about the alcohol sales. They changed it so now you cannot leave and come back. So I believe the second half should be more full for Iowa State. That's always been a problem, is that Jack Trice empties out and then we can't really get any momentum going besides the, I don't know what section that is, 212, with all of the high school kids that are shirtless waving around against, was that Oklahoma State? I remember.
Was that you guys? That was you guys. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was. And I was like, guys, this is like fun, but we're getting our butts handed to us. So I don't love this. But I think there's going to be momentum going into this game. I think we've got pieces. My biggest question mark probably is like who's going to step up at wide receiver. It seems like Cody Jackson was that guy at spring, but I didn't see him on my radar. So is Dom Overby going to step up? Who's going to be that guy for Iowa State offensively? I think defensively they'll be pretty good, and if you can keep Utah under 20 points, under 3 touchdowns, I think Iowa State will stand a really good chance. Now, if Utah blows the door open, I don't think Iowa State probably has the offense to keep up. But if the defense can play like I think they can in Terrell, and I think that defensive line is going to be incredible. I just could see this being a closer game than – I mean, obviously Utah's good. 3rd in the conference last year. I'm not putting anything against Utah in this situation.
Yeah.
I'm giving Utah their flowers, but I just think Iowa State will surprise some people this year.
I think they definitely could. And I think an advantage you guys will have in this game is I think for Morgan, it's easier to keep the culture in place than Rogers having to create one. But from a game management standpoint, that's where Morgan still has some. We have to see how Morgan's going to do. He's never had to manage a game. Even the bowl game, we blew out Nebraska. He didn't really have to manage anything there. How will he manage a game versus, I think, Coach Rogers delegating responsibility, running his staff? Those are all new things that Morgan has to do as well, too. How much input does he want to have on the offensive side of the ball early on? Those are all the types of things that matter. I mean, there's so much money that goes into trying to win football games, but it can come down to the little things such as experience. But it's going to be a fun year. And I'm just curious to see, too, Nick, I think let's wrap up with this one, the future of the Big 12. We got 2 programs like ours that are trying to do creative things. You mentioned alcohol sale. We're doing a private equity deal. Neither of us wants to get to the point where we have to cut like other sports, right? You don't want to have to cut the swimmings, the soccer, things of that nature. And I think that's a scary reality for some programs are going to have to face in the near future. I'm curious to see how the future of the Big 12 looks for both of these schools, but I hope that they can both continue to find ways to get that NIL money up, remain relevant. I like Iowa State being good. I know that Matt Campbell was the biggest reason why the past decade. It'd be fun if they stayed there and didn't go to bottom dweller status in this conference. And Utah's trying to avoid a similar thing. It's been recruit and develop. Well, you still need to be able to land even those 3-star guys, and they have been so far. It's been going okay, but there are concerns for the future. That's why both these universities are getting creative. What do you make of the future of the Big 12 and especially Iowa State in it?
Yeah, I think the Big 12 of all of the conferences it's my favorite to watch, but it's the most, I guess, concerning from a money standpoint. I don't know if that's maybe the right way to put it, but it certainly isn't reassuring. We'll say that. And for Iowa State, we mentioned like the new sales in the stadium for both football and basketball, but one of the things I brought up last week was they're now offering a new like hospitality package at it's called Ryman Gardens. It's like some gardening center literally right next to the stadium. Iowa State right now is getting as creative as they possibly can to bring in money. And that's what I talked about earlier in this episode. This is a very crucial year for Iowa State. This is like beyond crucial. If you do not succeed this year, you risk not having the financial athletic department funds to hit that cap for next season, because it's going to be, what was it, 20.5, then 21.3 or something like that. And the next year, I think it would map out at like early 22 million. So Iowa State would need to exceed about $116 million in athletic generated revenue before they hit that 20% cap. If you don't hit that cap, you're not bringing in enough money to bring in the right players. And when you're not bringing in the right players, you're not earning enough. It's only a positive feedback loop, a negative spiral. So Iowa State's got to get creative this year. I think they're doing it. Utah, obviously, with the private equity deal is, I think, the first of its kind. I don't know how many of those we'll see after everything that kind of came out after. Like, that's kind of what everyone was scared about. It ended up playing out. And so I'm curious how you feel about Utah with the private equity deal, because Iowa State's doing things in-house. They feel like, like little pennies in the wishing pond at some point, but every cent counts. Utah made a lot of noise, but was it the right kind of noise?
As of right now, I'll say yes. We'll see long-term if it pays off. When Mark Harlan, Utah's athletic director, says that it was in some ways more of a risk for us not to do it, I think that shows the state the university was in and we had to tap in athletic reserves last year to avoid being in the red once again. So something needed to change because Utah is trying to remain at the top towards the top of the Big 12 in football. They're not there in a lot of the other sports. I mean, baseball has not been very good. They were a little better this year. Basketball was terrible. They won 3 games against P4 teams last year. So this is Utah trying to change, trying to get better. And if they said they've taken a look at the risks and everything, and there are risks. You're taking out a loan at the end of the day. You're going to have to pay it back. But trust the people in place. They've won a lot of games up at Utah. All I could do is trust them and hope that it's going to work out. So yeah, I think it's a little concerning, but when I hear them say like we had to do this or things would get bad, as I talked about, I don't want to see Utah have to cut other programs. So
Yeah.
I'm down for them to try to take a bold swing, and we'll go from there and we'll see how it all shakes out. It's a wild time in college athletics, and it's going to be fun to see how these two teams work out when they face off. Nick, too, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, no, I mean, Utah, they're making it work. And if there's any year that they can be successful, it's this one. With this schedule, It'll start off against Iowa State. I think the Cyclones are going to give them a real tough chance. But, in Jack Trice, I suppose anything can happen. And I just know at the end of the day, we're going to end up with a really good game.
That's the hope. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Nick, always a blast doing these with you. Make sure you guys give him a follow at, what is your ad on X? I'm sorry. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's all right. At Nick_Marv.
Marv. I knew it wasn't Marovets. That's what I was going to say. So there we go.
It's hard to pronounce, hard to spell. Just shorten it and call it a day.
Make it easy. Nick, thanks again for making the time, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Can't wait for the game.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be doing another show in the near future talking about it. But thank you guys for making Locked On Utes, Locked On Cyclones first listen to the View of the Day. You can also make our show the second listen of the View of the Day, as well as Locked On Big 12. We have our squad show coming up, another edition of that here in the near future. Reminder, join our everydayer clubs today. Get started with a 7-day free trial, lockedonutes.supercast.com, lockedoncyclones.supercast.com, and we'll be back with you, each of our audiences, with more Locked On Utes and Locked On Cyclones content coming your way.